Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a truth that many fail to recognize. Your value is not defined by those who fail to see it. Many of us have experienced moments of rejection, whether in relationships, business, friendships, or opportunities. You poured your heart out, you gave your best, you invested time, energy, and love. Yet they walked away as if you were replaceable. But I am here to tell you today, they will request you. A diamond remains a diamond, even if it is buried in the dirt. Its worth is not diminished because someone fails to recognize it. The problem is not with the diamond, it is with the one who cannot see its brilliance. Too often, we tie our self-worth to the way others treat us. We measure our value by the opinions of those who are blind to our greatness. But let me tell you this, just because someone does not acknowledge your worth does not mean you are. Some people are too distracted, too immature, or too short-sighted to recognize the treasure that stands before them. Their failure to appreciate you does not decrease your significance, it only reveals their inability to see clearly. When people overlook you, when they walk away, when they treat you as ordinary, do not be discouraged. The truth is, not everyone is equipped to handle the greatness you carry. Some people are only comfortable with mediocrity, and when they encounter excellence, they don't know how to respond. Instead of embracing it, they reject it, not because you are unworthy, but because they are unprepared. History proves this truth time and time again. Think about it. Many of the greatest leaders, innovators, and visionaries were once ignored, ridiculed, or underestimated. Some were rejected by those closest to them. Some were doubted even by those who should have supported them. Yet their value remained intact, and in time, the world realized what they had missed. The same will happen with you. It is dangerous to place your worth in the hands of people who do not understand your purpose. The applause of people is fleeting, and their approval is unreliable. One day they will celebrate you, the next they may criticize you. If your confidence is built on their recognition, you will always be unstable, always trying to prove yourself, always feeling like you are not enough. But if you know your worth, if you are anchored in who you are, nothing they say or do can shake you. There are those who will only realize your value after you are no longer available to them. They will remember your kindness when they can no longer find it elsewhere. They will recognize your strength when they face battles without you by their side. They will miss your wisdom when the voices around them fail to guide them, but by then, it may be too late. So never diminish yourself just because someone else fails to see your greatness. Never shrink to fit into spaces that do not appreciate you. Never beg for validation from those who do not understand your worth. You were created with purpose. You were designed with excellence. And whether they see it or not, your value remains unchanged. Rejection is often redirection. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. It shakes your confidence, makes you question your worth, and sometimes leaves you feeling abandoned. But what if I told you that rejection is not a curse? What if I told you that rejection is often the very thing that saves you from places you were never meant to stay? Many of us have been rejected by people we loved, jobs we wanted, opportunities we prayed for. We invested time, effort, and emotion only to be met with closed doors. The pain of rejection is real, but the perspective you hold about it will determine your future. Too often, we see rejection as an attack, but in reality, rejection is often divine redirection. It is the removal of something that would have limited us so that we can embrace something greater. Consider this. If you had gotten every job you applied for, you might have missed out on the one that changed your life. If you had held on to every relationship, you might have never met the person who truly values you. If you had been accepted everywhere you wanted to be, you might have never discovered the place where you truly belong. Rejection stings, but sometimes it is the only thing strong enough to push us out of comfort zones and into our destiny. Many people make the mistake of chasing after those who reject them, begging for their acceptance, trying to prove their worth. But understand this. Anything that requires you to diminish your value, to be accepted, is not meant for you. The doors that slam in your face, the people who walk away, the opportunities that disappear, they are not the end of your journey. They are signs pointing you in the right direction. Think of some of the most successful individuals in history. They were rejected time and time again. Great authors had their manuscripts turned away by publishers who couldn't see their potential. Innovators had their ideas laughed at before they changed the world. Leaders were dismissed before they became legends. What separates them from the rest is that they did not allow rejection to define them. Instead, they used it as fuel. They understood that a no from one person does not mean a no from life. They embraced rejection as a stepping stone towards something better. But here's the challenge. When rejection comes, will you let it break you or will you let it build you? Will you let it convince you that you are unworthy, or will you let it remind you that you are aiming too low? Some of the things we cry over, the things we beg to have back, the things we think we lost, if we could see the full picture, we would realize they were never truly for us in the first place. There are times when rejection protects us from people who would have drained us, from jobs that would have enslaved us, from places that would have confined us. What we see as a painful loss is often a divine intervention. The same people who reject you today will look back and regret when they see where life has taken you. But by then you will have outgrown their expectations, and the rejection they once thought was their choice will be revealed as your greatest blessing. People often take for granted what is consistently available to them. They assume that what they have today will always be there tomorrow. They assume that kindness, loyalty, and love are things they are entitled to, rather than gifts that must be cherished. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever if it is not valued. And when something precious is ignored for too long, it eventually disappears. It is only in absence that many realize what they had in their presence. Have you ever noticed how people suddenly appreciate you when you are no longer around? How the same individuals who once dismissed you begin to speak highly of you once you are no longer accessible? It is a painful reality of life. Some will never recognize your worth until you remove yourself. As long as you are always available, as long as you continue giving, as long as you keep showing up despite being unappreciated, they will assume that your presence is guaranteed. They will assume that you will always be there, regardless of how they treat you. But the moment you step away, the moment you stop answering their calls, the moment you stop going out of your way to help, something shifts. They begin to notice the emptiness you leave behind. They begin to realize that the things they once overlooked were the very things holding them together. The loyalty they took for granted, the support they barely acknowledged, the wisdom they ignored, all of it suddenly becomes clear when it is gone. Think about the air we breathe. We rarely stop to appreciate it, though it is the very thing that sustains us. We go through life without thinking about it until we struggle to breathe. Only then do we realize how much we depended on it. The same principle applies to people. As long as you are constantly pouring into others, as long as you are always available, they may never stop to acknowledge your presence. But the moment you step back, the moment you withhold what you once gave freely, the moment you decide that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on those who do not appreciate it, that is when they will feel your absence. Absence creates clarity. It forces people to reflect on what they once had. It reveals what was truly important and what was simply taken for granted. Some people will only understand your worth when they try to find someone else like you and realize there is no replacement. They will look for the kindness you showed, the loyalty you gave, the wisdom you shared, but they will not find it. Because what you carried was unique and what you gave was rare. There are friendships that have been broken not because of betrayal, but because one person kept giving while the other kept receiving without gratitude. There are relationships that have ended not because of lack of love, but because love was taken for granted until it was no longer there. There are careers where employees were overlooked and undervalued until they resigned, and only then did their employers realize they were the backbone of the company. This is the way life works. Sometimes, absence is the only thing that can teach the lesson that presence failed to teach. But here's the truth. By the time they recognize your worth, you will have changed. You will have grown. You will have learned that your value does not decrease just because someone failed to see it. You will have discovered that you do not need to beg to be appreciated, that you do not need to remain where you are, not celebrated, and that your presence is a privilege, not an obligation. And by then, the door they once left open will be one they can no longer walk through. Today, I challenge you. Do not grieve over those who fail to see your value. Do not beg for a seat at a table that refuses to honor you. You are destined for greatness, and nothing, no rejection, no betrayal, no loss, can stop what is inside you. So walk with confidence, live with purpose, and when they regret losing you, let them watch you rise. Thank you.